They told you loyalty is noble. They said it is what makes you honorable, what makes you human, what binds the soul to a higher cause. But they never told you who benefits from your loyalty. They never told you why they insist you stay loyal, even when your heart is screaming to run. You were trained to kneel before the idea of devotion to family, to a job, to a partner, to a flag, without once questioning who gains and who loses in that transaction. And now, look closely. What has that loyalty bought you? Betrayal, neglect, obedience disguised as virtue. Loyalty, when blindly given, is the most refined form of manipulation. It is a golden leash around the neck of the masses, polished with words like duty, honor, and sacrifice. But beneath its shine is rust corrosion of your freedom, your individuality, your power. They teach you loyalty not for your benefit, but to sedate you. So you stay in toxic families. So you serve ungrateful leaders. So you rot in dead-end relationships, all in the name of a principle that was never meant to protect you but to control you. If you want to understand the true nature of loyalty, observe the powerful. Do they serve with devotion, or do they command it from others? Do they sacrifice for loyalty, or do they demand yours while acting in their own interest? The truth is simple. Those in power never play by the rules they preach. They exalt loyalty only when it benefits them. The king praises the loyal knight not because he loves him, but because he's useful. The moment that knight falters or questions his orders, he is disposable. And that's the brutal truth of how loyalty is weaponized. Not to reward you, to own you. You see, control is never sustained through chains or brute force. It's sustained through ideas that infect the mind and make people believe they're choosing their bondage. Loyalty is one such idea. It's the reason soldiers march into death with smiles, the reason employees stay in jobs that drain their soul, the reason partners endure disrespect in the name of love. If they can convince you that loyalty is sacred, they don't need to coerce you. You will imprison yourself, and what do you lose in this equation? Your autonomy, your fire, your ability to see through deception. Loyalty becomes the drug that dulls your instincts. You start ignoring red flags. You excuse abuse. You tolerate disrespect. You twist your logic to protect the image of the person or institution you've committed yourself to even when they no longer deserve it. That is not virtue. That is self-erasure. But you were not born to be tamed. You were not put on this earth to live by a code that silences your voice. Your loyalty should be a sword, not a collar. It should be earned, not expected. And when it is no longer respected, it must be withdrawn without apology. That is how you reclaim power, by refusing to be anyone's pawn in the name of a principle they don't uphold themselves. Let's make one thing brutally clear. Loyalty that is not reciprocated is exploitation. Any system, relationship, or belief that demands loyalty while offering none in return is parasitic. And parasites only survive when the host remains unaware. The moment you become conscious of this, you awaken the most dangerous force within you: strategic detachment. You learn when to walk away. You understand the value of your energy, your allegiance, your presence. You become sovereign. Detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. It is the ability to step back and ask, is this loyalty empowering me, or is it suffocating me? Most people never ask that question because they are too entangled in the illusion that loyalty is always good. But goodness without discernment is weakness. You must learn to reserve your loyalty like a king reserves his gold only to those who prove themselves worthy, not just to those who demand it. And when you do, you become dangerous, because the world is not threatened by obedient followers, it is threatened by free minds. The person who is no longer seduced by the illusion of loyalty is unpredictable. They cannot be controlled with guilt or shame. They cannot be manipulated with emotional debts. They become exactly what every manipulator fears: someone who chooses where they stand and never forgets how to walk away. And now, as you stand in the ruins of the old paradigm, where you once pledged your life to people and institutions that never truly saw you, you must decide what loyalty means from this moment forward. Not the loyalty they taught you, but the loyalty you define for yourself. A loyalty rooted in mutual respect, not servitude. A loyalty that lifts, not limits. And most of all, a loyalty to your own soul above all else. Because when that loyalty is strong, no one can ever use you again. And this is the revelation they fear most, that the strongest people are not those who stay loyal no matter what. It is those who are wise enough to leave. Those who understand that principles without boundaries become prisons. That freedom without clarity becomes chaos. But clarity, sharp, disciplined clarity, is what turns the broken into builders, the used into rulers, the followers into leaders. They called loyalty a virtue, but when you finally open your eyes, you realize it was always a contract, one you never read, but signed with your silence. Tear it up, rewrite your code. Give your loyalty only to those who earn it, and never forget. The ultimate betrayal is betraying yourself just to stay loyal to others. And here's the final truth: those who preach loyalty the loudest are often the ones who deserve it the least. The true tyrant doesn't need to shout. He lets loyalty speak for him, through your guilt, through your hesitation, through your fear of being seen as disloyal. But you are not here to be obedient. You are here to be awake, to observe, to understand that loyalty, when corrupted, becomes the quietest form of slavery, the kind you don't resist because you think you chose it. That's the brilliance of it. That's the trap. But once you know the trap, you can never unsee it. They told you loyalty was the mark of a good person, a moral compass, a badge of honor, but they never told you who crafted that belief and why it benefits them more than it ever benefited you. The truth is, loyalty is not a virtue in itself. It is a concept, a mental structure designed to condition your choices before you even realize you have them. It's not an innate human instinct. It is taught, drilled into you through stories, rituals, cultures, and authority figures. Loyalty, in its rawest form, is not about love or trust. It is about control, elegant, subtle, and silent. You're not just loyal because you want to be. You're loyal because you've been trained to believe that not being loyal makes you dangerous, selfish, broken. They make you afraid of being disloyal, not because disloyalty harms you, but because it threatens their power over you. This is how the mind is enslaved, not by force, but by emotional contracts. You're made to believe that loyalty is your highest form of honor, so you bind yourself to people, causes, and systems long after they've stopped serving you. That's the genius of this construct. It doesn't need chains, it only needs your guilt. The very moment you begin to question the people or structures you've been loyal to, you're flooded with self-doubt. You ask yourself, am I being disloyal? Instead of asking, do they still deserve my loyalty? That's how the construct wins, by replacing your logic with obligation, your intuition with fear. The deeper the conditioning, the harder it is to see that you're not choosing loyalty, you're submitting to it. Most people don't realize they've been mentally captured because the cage is internal. It's a prison built from beliefs, not bars. When you hear the word loyalty, you don't just think of it as a value, you associate it with identity. You say, I'm a loyal person, as if it defines your worth. So when that loyalty is tested, it's not just a choice at stake, it's your entire self-image. This makes it nearly impossible to walk away from people or systems that exploit you, because leaving feels like betraying yourself. But this is the trick. They attached your loyalty to your identity so you would never question their authority. You were never taught to differentiate between earned loyalty and manipulated loyalty. You were just told to stay no matter the cost. This is how abusive relationships survive. This is how oppressive institutions endure, not through strength, but through emotional engineering. They don't need to silence you when they've already convinced you that speaking out would make you disloyal. That is the power of a psychological construct. It does the work of control without ever appearing like control. You end up betraying your own well-being just to maintain the illusion of being a good person. And in the end, who benefits from that goodness? Not you. You're drained, you're silenced, you're predictable. The person who benefits is the one who designed the system that taught you to worship loyalty above truth. And the more loyal you become, the more predictable you are. Predictability is power for them. It means you'll forgive again, you'll stay quiet again, you'll stay in line again. That's why loyalty is so aggressively glorified in society. Not because it creates integrity, but because it creates compliance. A loyal person is an easier person to manipulate, to direct, to restrain. They say, stay loyal to your roots, your tribe, your blood. But what if your roots are poisoned? What if your tribe is built on silence? What if your blood is toxic? No one wants you to ask these questions because these questions shatter the spell that makes you submit, sacrifice, and suffer in the name of an idea that was never yours to begin with. They taught you loyalty through fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of guilt, fear of being seen as disloyal. That fear keeps you from evolving. It traps you in outdated roles: the loyal daughter, the loyal worker, the loyal believer. And the moment you try to redefine yourself, you'll notice how fast the people and systems you were loyal to turn on you. That's the ultimate proof they never loved you for your loyalty. They loved what your loyalty gave them: power, obedience, control. Once you refuse to feed them that, their true face is revealed. And once you see that face, you can never unsee it. You start realizing that loyalty has been used as a tool to condition your morality. You are never asked what is right, only what is loyal. But morality is fluid. Truth evolves. People change. Systems corrupt. And if your loyalty remains constant while everything else shifts, then your loyalty is not a strength. It's a trap. Real strength lies in the ability to choose, to evaluate, to withdraw. Loyalty must be conscious, not automatic. Anything automatic is not loyalty, it's programming. You begin to see it clearly once the illusion shatters. Loyalty is not only a mental construct designed to enslave the mind, but it is also the favorite weapon of those who crave power. The powerful don't follow loyalty, they command it. They craft narratives around it, demand sacrifices in its name, and wrap themselves in its symbolism, not because they believe in its sanctity, but because they understand its utility. They know that once they secure your loyalty, they don't need to earn your respect. They no longer need to justify their decisions. They simply expect obedience, and that obedience, born from your internalized sense of duty, becomes the very mechanism that keeps you beneath them. Watch how leaders use the word loyalty. It is never humble. It is rarely mutual. It is always directional, flowing upward, never downward. You are to be loyal to them. They owe you nothing in return. This is the hierarchy loyalty protects. Power at the top, submission at the bottom. It's a pyramid built not with stones, but with promises, debts, expectations, and fear. And you, caught in the illusion of being loyal, continue to feed that structure, thinking your loyalty makes you righteous. But in their eyes, it simply makes you manageable. You were never meant to be their equal. That's why they praise your loyalty when you sacrifice, but disappear when you question. Your loyalty is celebrated when you suffer silently, when you obey without resistance, when you remain consistent even when their actions grow more corrupt, more self-serving. This is the game. The powerful redefine betrayal as any deviation from your loyalty to them, not from truth, not from justice, not even from logic. It's not about what's right, it's about what's loyal. And once you buy into that, they own you. Think about it. When a subordinate challenges a leader, what is the first accusation? Not that the challenge is wrong, but that it's disloyal. The truth of the claim doesn't matter. The ethics of the situation are irrelevant. All that matters is whether or not you remained loyal. This isn't morality. This is control disguised as ethics. You're not being held to a standard of truth, you're being chained to a hierarchy. And the only real sin in a hierarchy is disobedience. This dynamic appears everywhere in politics, religion, corporations, families. The father who demands loyalty from his children while offering no emotional safety. The employer who preaches company loyalty while discarding employees the moment they are inconvenient. The leader who demands patriotism while betraying the very people who trust him. These are not isolated cases. These are patterns, and patterns don't lie. They reveal the core truth. Loyalty is not about mutual respect. It is about preserving dominance. The most dangerous thing about powerful people isn't their intelligence, or their charisma, or even their ruthlessness. It's their ability to frame loyalty as morality. Once they achieve that, they can justify anything. They can make betrayal look like justice. They can paint dissent as evil. They can twist your allegiance into a weapon against yourself, and you won't even realize you're being used. You'll think you're being noble. That's how they win, not through violence, but through narrative control. If you study the psychology of dictators, cult leaders, corporate tyrants, or even manipulative partners, you'll find a common thread. They demand loyalty as proof of love. They measure your worth not by your integrity, but by your willingness to surrender your voice. And the moment you hesitate, the moment you question, you're branded a traitor. That's how fragile their power really is. It depends entirely on your silence, on your compliance. It cannot survive in the presence of clarity or courage. The powerful are not afraid of betrayal, they are terrified of awakening. Betrayal, they can punish. But awakening, that cannot be punished. Because once someone wakes up to the truth, they don't need revenge, they just walk away. They stop feeding the machine. They stop believing in the story. And the moment the masses stop believing in the sanctity of loyalty, the entire pyramid collapses. You've seen it in history, again and again. The people revolt not when they are most oppressed, but when they finally understand that their loyalty has been weaponized against them. And once that veil is lifted, no amount of threats or praise can restore blind faith. That's why powerful individuals invest so heavily in rituals, symbols, and language to keep the illusion of sacred loyalty intact. Because if they lose your loyalty, they lose their shield. Their authority becomes exposed as fraud, as fiction. And power built on fiction is always one breath away from collapse. But even in your daily life, the same principle applies. You are told to remain loyal to people who consistently dishonor you, to jobs that devalue you, to social systems that don't protect you. And when you step away, you're the one painted as the villain. But consider who benefits from that narrative, not you. The person who benefits is always the one who loses control when you finally act on your truth. You are not born to serve anyone's idea of loyalty. You were not created to be a resource for someone else's comfort. Your existence is not a pledge, it is a force. And when you realize that the powerful only celebrate your loyalty when it makes you weaker, you begin to take your power back, not by rebellion alone, but by recognition. You stop giving yourself away to those who only value you when you are quiet, compliant, and small. You remember who you are without the leash, and that, more than anything, is what terrifies those who once commanded your devotion. And this is where the cost becomes personal, when loyalty, shaped to enslave your mind, and exploited by the powerful, begins to quietly erode your sense of self. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, invisibly, over time. Blind loyalty doesn't arrive as a shackle, it arrives as a virtue. And in worshipping that false virtue, you begin to abandon the parts of yourself that once burned with clarity and strength. You silence your intuition. You suppress your judgment. You train yourself to endure what you know deep down is wrong, not because you lack intelligence, but because you've been conditioned to believe that your silence is proof of your character. That is the subtle cruelty of blind loyalty. It disguises your destruction as integrity. You stay in relationships that diminish you because you believe walking away is a betrayal. You keep promises that break you because you were taught that loyalty is about endurance, not reciprocity. You allow your energy to be consumed, your boundaries violated, your identity diluted, all in service of an unspoken code that demands more from you than it ever returns. That is not love. That is not principle. That is quiet self-destruction. And the ones who benefit from your loyalty know this. They count on it. They depend on the fact that you'll question yourself before you question them, that you'll feel guilt long before you feel resentment. They understand that blind loyalty doesn't just weaken your choices, it weakens your voice. You start to censor your thoughts, doubt your instincts, tolerate more than you should. You convince yourself that speaking up is selfish, that leaving is disloyal, that protecting yourself is an act of betrayal. And this is where your self-respect begins to vanish, not through dramatic acts, but through daily submission. Respect cannot exist where fear dominates, and when loyalty is demanded rather than earned, it becomes fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of being judged, fear of being abandoned. You become more concerned with maintaining the image of loyalty than with protecting your own truth. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to disappear, not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. You become smaller in the spaces where you used to be bold. You become quieter where you once spoke truth. You begin to feel like a stranger in your own mind. This isn't sacrifice itself, erasure. Loyalty that asks you to kill parts of yourself is not loyalty. It's compliance disguised as character, and yet society claps for it. They say you're strong for enduring. They say you're noble for staying, but they never see the parts of you that are dying in the name of that staying. They don't see the nights you question your worth, the mornings you wake up heavy, the dreams you bury, the values you compromise, all because loyalty has been reframed as suffering for the sake of others, even when those others have shown you no respect in return. Your self-respect begins to corrode when you let loyalty override reality. You ignore how people treat you. You forgive too quickly. You forget too often. You keep showing up not because you are seen, but because you are afraid not to. That fear is the leash. It is the echo of every manipulator who ever told you if you really cared, you'd stay. That's not love, that's control. And as long as you remain bound by that belief, you will keep betraying the one person you were never meant to betray, yourself. Your standards will drop. Your needs will shrink. Your strength will turn into quiet endurance. Until one day, you look in the mirror and realize that the only person who has never been truly loyal to you is you. But here's what they never teach you. Loyalty without self-respect is slavery. You are not required to stay loyal to those who degrade you. You are not obligated to prove your worth to people who refuse to honor it. Loyalty must be mutual, or it becomes manipulation, and self-respect must come first, or you will bleed in silence for people who will never bandage your wounds. They want you to believe that walking away makes you weak, that detaching makes you cold, that protecting your peace is a betrayal. But it isn't. It's strength. It's clarity. It's the moment you decide that your worth will no longer be measured by how much you can endure, because the truth is, every time you give blind loyalty to someone who mistreats you, you teach them how to treat you. You reinforce the idea that you are willing to be broken in silence, as long as you can call it loyalty. But that's not loyalty. That's abandonment of self. And no one, no lover, no leader, no family, no friend deserves a version of your loyalty that comes at the cost of your dignity. The people who truly deserve you will never force you to choose between being loyal and being whole. They will never demand your silence to feel powerful. They will never weaponize your goodness against you. Those who do are not worthy of your allegiance. They are afraid of your awakening. Because once you respect yourself enough to question your loyalty, you begin to unlearn everything they used to keep you small. You realize that true loyalty begins with being loyal to your soul, your values, your vision, and that kind of loyalty. It's rare, it's powerful, and it can't be bought, guilted, or broken. That's the loyalty they fear, the kind that cannot be used to control you. Once you finally break free from the illusion that loyalty is always virtuous, once you see how it enslaves your mind, serves the powerful, and erodes your self-respect, the natural question becomes, what now? What replaces it? And the answer is simple but uncomfortable: strategic detachment. Not coldness, not bitterness, not hatred, but the intelligent, deliberate refusal to give your loyalty to what no longer honors you. The moment you begin to practice detachment, not as a defense mechanism, but as a conscious strategy, you stop being a pawn. You become something else entirely: a player with power, with perspective, with the ability to choose where and to whom your energy flows. Strategic detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop sacrificing yourself in places where your care is weaponized. It means you no longer confuse emotional attachment with obligation. You can love someone and still walk away. You can respect someone and still refuse to be ruled by them. You can honor your past and still outgrow it. Detachment is the reclaiming of your authority, the declaration that your value is not determined by how much pain you're willing to carry for someone else. And this shift, once made, becomes irreversible. Because once you experience the mental clarity that comes from stepping away, the desperation that once tied you to unhealthy loyalty begins to dissolve. When you begin to live detached, you stop begging for appreciation. You stop chasing validation. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. Your presence becomes intentional, not habitual. You begin to say no, not out of rebellion, but out of alignment. And you realize something profound, that people who love you for your loyalty often vanish the moment you express your independence. The moment you choose your peace over their control, the dynamic shatters. They accuse you of being selfish, cold, distant, but in truth, you are only becoming clear. You are no longer loyal to the role they gave you, you're loyal to your truth. That is what true power looks like. Not the ability to stay, but the strength to leave. Not the endurance to tolerate pain, but the wisdom to prevent it. You stop trying to fix what keeps breaking you. You no longer engage in relationships, jobs, ideologies that ask you to betray yourself in small, quiet ways. Strategic detachment teaches you that letting go is not failure, it is preservation. It is not indifference, it is discipline. And the people who once counted on your blind loyalty begin to realize that their influence has expired. They no longer have emotional leverage over you, and when they lose that, they lose access to the version of you that was easiest to use. This doesn't make you heartless. It makes you precise. Strategic detachment is not about isolating yourself. It's about becoming impossible to manipulate. When you detach, you stop participating in guilt games. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop giving second chances to people who treated your loyalty like a disposable commodity. You become unavailable to the dynamics that once drained you, and in doing so, you create space for people, environments, and commitments that actually deserve your loyalty. The irony is that detachment is what makes your loyalty valuable again. When it is no longer automatic, it becomes sacred. When you no longer give it freely, it becomes meaningful. You're no longer loyal because you fear being alone, or because you were taught that leaving makes you unworthy. You're loyal by choice, not compulsion, and loyalty by choice is the only kind that carries true power, because it's rooted in clarity, not fear, in self-respect, not guilt, in alignment, not obligation. And those who understand this will never ask you to prove your loyalty by staying silent, by staying small, or by staying stuck. They will never force you to choose between your values and their comfort. The right people won't demand your loyalty, they will earn it, by how they show up, by how they treat you, by how they honor who you are, not just who they want you to be. The rest, let them call you disloyal. Let them accuse you of being distant, cold, unpredictable, because they only miss your loyalty when it's gone, and they only notice your detachment when they can no longer control you. You do not need to explain your evolution to people committed to misunderstanding your growth. You do not need to feel guilty for no longer setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Strategic detachment is not cruelty, it's clarity. It's the understanding that the highest form of loyalty is not what you give to others blindly, but what you give to your values, to your well-being, to your peace. When you are detached from the need to please, to prove, to perform, you become truly ungovernable. That is what they fear most, not your disloyalty, but your awakening, because once you are awake, you are no longer theirs. You are yours, fully, completely, and unapologetically.